Actually, the first show that I played was the Ohio State Fair with about 20,000 people, you know, and I was extremely frightened.
Ricky Nelson earned millions as America's sweetheart, but he couldn't even buy movie tickets. His father controlled every penny. When Ricky begged for pocket money, he was told to collect soda bottles for change. Behind the perfect family image was a darker truth. Recently discovered contracts reveal how his own parents trapped him in a deal that stole his childhood and his fortune. But that's not the worst part. New evidence shows what really happened in those final years before the plane crash. The truth will destroy everything you believed about America's most famous family. He was born into a script someone else had written. On May 8, 1940, Eric Hilliard Nelson came into the world in Teaneck, New Jersey. But by the time he could crawl, his name had already been rehearsed through microphones and stitched into studio contracts. His father, Ozzie Nelson, had already swung through the big band era with a baton in one hand and a vision in the other. His mother, Harriet Hilliard, had sung on vaudeville stages and smiled through film reels long before Ricky learned to stand. Their fame wasn't the kind that came and went. It was built into living rooms across America every week. And by October 1944, the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet had turned their family into the country's first sitcom royalty. The house Ricky grew up in didn't echo with bedtime stories or scraped knees. It pulsed with rehearsals, lighting checks, and scripts marked in pencil. Even before preschool, Harriet was teaching him how to control his breathing between verses. She never sent him to school at all, not until she was satisfied he could sing a note without cracking. Ricky didn't ask to become a performer. He was raised like a product being polished for a showroom window, shaped by his mother's schedule and his father's ambition. By the time he was 4, his name was already printed in call sheets. At 8, he stepped into the sound booth to replace the child actor playing him on the family's radio show. No one asked if he was ready. That wasn't part of the plan. He was a sickly boy, thin, quiet, with a chest that wheezed through the night and skin that didn't seem made for cameras. Asthma kept him in bed more than recess ever would have. He wasn't bold or loud. He was slow to speak, observant, watching the world from behind a wall of studio lights and parental scripts. But in 1949, when Ricky and David finally played themselves on the airwaves, audiences didn't see the sickly kid. They heard jokes, they heard timing, they heard a little boy turning into a natural, even if, behind the scenes, Ricky was just doing what he was told. Within months, the show was pulling in 20 million listeners every week. Ricky was 9 and making $200 per episode. That would be around $4,500 today, but none of it reached his hands. Ozzie kept the money, all of it. Ricky was given an allowance so small, it barely covered snacks. While other kids traded baseball cards, Ricky's father was trading his son's fame for furniture and property, vacations and investments. By the time Ricky was 16, he had $500,000 in his name. Over $5.7 million today, but he couldn't touch any of it. At 18, he was paying 93% of his income to taxes. Once, just to take a girl to the movies, he had to dig through soda bottles for change. In 1952, the family moved to Hollywood, and the radio show became a television show. The living room on screen wasn't just a set, it mirrored the real one. But for Ricky, the shift to TV meant even more visibility. He was no longer a voice in the ether. He was a face, a body, a public figure, and he didn't enjoy it. He couldn't make friends, couldn't walk alone, couldn't be late to set without his father pulling him aside. There were no sleepovers, no football games, no dances without permission. Ozzie would tell him, "The family is your world," and that was that. Ricky began hiding, not physically, he couldn't, but internally. The smiling, perfect boy on TV was rarely the same boy backstage. He battled anxiety, often excusing himself from shoots to catch his breath. He'd panic before commercials. He'd get sick before scenes. Wheaties ads, magazine covers, teenage heartthrob headlines. All of them felt like masks he couldn't take off. Friends would later say he had no idea how to be himself unless someone told him who that was. By 1955, the show had won Emmys, and Ricky's face was pinned on bedroom walls across the country. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet would run for 14 seasons, a record at the time, with 435 episodes. It followed Ricky from age 8 to his 20s. It staged his first dates, first crushes, and musical awakenings. Everything felt real because it was presented as real. But off camera, it was different. Ozzy didn't just direct the show. He directed Ricky's life. From school to dating to money, everything was filtered through a script written by someone else. And Ricky was expected to hit his marks. When his asthma flared, producers hid vaporizers just out of frame. When he grew tired after 12-hour shoots, Harriet reminded him the family's image came first. Red Skelton's producer once called him an odd little kid, but behind the oddness was exhaustion. Harriet admitted later that Ricky's cheerful demeanor was often forced. His illnesses weren't pauses, they were inconveniences to be worked around. He smiled for the audience and collapsed when the cameras stopped, and still the money flowed. In 1957 and 1958, Ricky was earning $5,000 per week. In today's money, that's over $50,000 a week. Yet none of it gave him freedom. Ozzy used the income to pay for their Hollywood Hills estate, the Cadillacs, the country club memberships. Ricky was given a $50 allowance. He once admitted that the only way he could buy something personal was to ask permission or sneak change. Even in high school, Ricky acted out. Not with drugs or rebellion, but with pranks and absences. He failed English just to see what would happen. He skipped class to blast records and sneak off to see live music. He didn't want trouble, he wanted freedom. In music, he found it. It was the one place where his parents didn't fully control him. When he began recording his own songs, it was partly out of curiosity and partly out of desperation. He wanted a voice that wasn't filtered through a character. When Ricky Nelson was just 10, asthma hit him hard. Not just the kind that passed in a few days, this one lingered, forcing him to stay in bed for weeks while other kids were outside running, yelling, living. But Ricky wasn't resting. He was memorizing scripts. Ozzie Nelson, his father, called it preparation for greatness. Ricky was missing school, missing birthday parties, missing the world, but on paper, he was getting ahead. The show, The Adventures of Ozzy and Harriet, kept growing, and Ricky's role kept growing with it. Fame and sickness blurred. Illness didn't stop his work. In fact, it became part of it. The pressure didn't let up, and over time, he stopped seeing rest as something for recovery. It became part of the job. What started as asthma turned into something bigger. It shaped how he saw childhood. It told him he wasn't a normal kid. He was an investment. When he was 12, Ricky wanted a bicycle. Nothing fancy, just something to feel the wind on his face like the other boys. Ozzy and Harriet said no. Not because of money, not because it was unsafe, because it didn't match his image. They didn't want fans or reporters snapping photos of Ricky looking too ordinary. So while his classmates pedaled around town, Ricky walked, sometimes to school, sometimes to the set. That bike, or the lack of it, left a bigger mark than they expected. It wasn't about wheels, it was about freedom, and every step he took reminded him of the things he couldn't have. The feeling settled deep. His life wasn't his. His smile, his style, his schedule, it all belonged to someone else. At 14, the teasing started. Kids at school called him TV boy. At first it was just joking, but Ricky felt it cut through. He wasn't one of them. He lived in two worlds. One had studio lights and scripted laughter. The other had locker rooms and cafeteria jokes. And he didn't belong in either. Harriet tried to help. She arranged bonding moments on set, tried to turn the fake family into something real. But the warmth was staged, and Ricky knew it. The more they tried, the more it reminded him what he didn't have. The teasing didn't stop, and Ricky withdrew. He found more comfort pretending on camera than trying to connect off it. He wasn't growing up, he was being built. By 16, Ricky Nelson had made over $500,000. Adjusted to 2024 dollars, that was about $362 million. But he didn't feel rich. His parents gave him just $50 a week. The rest was locked away. They said it was to protect him from being spoiled, but Ricky didn't feel protected. He felt powerless. One night, when he wanted to take a girl to the movies, he didn't even have the cash, so he gathered empty soda bottles, turned them in for coins, and bought the tickets that way. He later admitted it made him feel worthless. He was a star on screen, but in real life, he was just a kid counting nickels. The gap between who he was and who people thought he was kept widening. Even the dances were controlled. Ricky wasn't allowed to go to school parties or casual hangouts. Ozzy wanted everything chaperoned, clean, safe, scripted. So Ricky stood in rooms full of strangers his parents approved of. watched closely, told what to say, what not to say. There was no risk, but there was also no freedom. He couldn't stumble through awkward first dates, couldn't whisper dumb jokes to friends, couldn't just be a teenager. He once said he felt like a star, but not a person. Those years didn't give him memories. They gave him marketing. Then, in early 1957, everything shifted. Ricky saw Elvis Presley on The Ed Sullivan Show, and it lit something in him. He wasn't thinking about the family brand. He just wanted to sing. He begged Ozzy to help. And on March 26, 1957, in a Hollywood studio, Ricky recorded I'm Walkin' and A Teenager's Romance. Both songs were released on April 24th, but before they even hit stores, Ricky performed them live on his family's show. Viewers watched the episode and raced to stores. The songs exploded. A Teenager's Romance hit number 2. I'm Walkin' reached number 17. Suddenly, Ricky wasn't just the quiet boy on TV, he was a teen idol. Verve Records didn't last. They clashed with Ozzy over royalties and control. So by summer 1957, Ricky signed with Imperial Records. That contract changed everything. For a teenager to get creative control was almost unheard of, but Ricky got to pick his songs, approve the album covers, choose the musicians. The first single, Bebop Baby, came out October 7th. It sold 750,000 copies before it even hit stores. Eventually, it passed 1 million. It climbed to number 3 on the Billboard chart and number 5 on the R&B chart. It was clean, polished. Different from the wild energy of Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard, Ricky didn't scream, he didn't shake, but he sold. Imperial paired the single with Have I Told You Lately That I Love You, betting on both rock and sweetness. The gamble worked. Billboard ranked Bebop Baby number 42 for the year. His debut album, simply titled Ricky, followed shortly after. It mixed covers like Blueberry Hill and Boppin' the Blues with his own hits. The album climbed to number 1. It stayed in the top 10 for months. Ricky was no longer just a TV son. He was the face of teenage rock. The blend of television and music turned out to be genius. Ozzy didn't stop there. He wove the songs into the show itself. One episode staged a fake studio recording of Stood Up just before the actual release. That one move sent demand soaring. When the song officially dropped on December 30th, 1957, it hit number 2 on the Billboard chart. It also charted on the R&B and country lists. That had never really been done before, a single crossing that many lines. Ricky's reach wasn't just wide, it was deep. In the summer of 1958, something new was about to change the face of American music forever. Billboard introduced a fresh chart called the Hot 100, and within just a few weeks, one song climbed faster than anyone expected. Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson shot up from number 18 to number 1 by August 4th. It stayed there for 2 full weeks, not just leading the Hot 100, but also topping the best-selling pop singles chart. No one had ever done that before. Nelson wasn't just on the radio, he was on television. He was in teen bedrooms across the country. By the end of the year, over 2 million records had been sold. Theater managers airing his family's TV show found themselves forced to call in police just to control the crowd. Letters poured in by the thousands to his studio. Some girls wrote every single day. He wasn't just a pop star, he was the first real teen idol America had ever seen. A few weeks later, on August 29, 1958, Ricky released something slower. Lonesome Town sounded soft, sad, and nothing like the rock and roll frenzy most people expected from a teen heartthrob, but it landed like thunder. The song climbed to number 7 on the Hot 100 and found itself sitting on the R&B charts too. That didn't happen often for white artists in those years. It had backing vocals by the Jordanaires, the same group that sang with Elvis. People compared it to Love Me Tender, but this one hit differently. Teenagers, especially the heartbroken ones, said it helped them feel seen. Letters again flooded in. The song didn't just live on records and radio, it appeared again and again on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, where Ricky played himself. Years later, it found a second life in Pulp Fiction, pulling a new generation into its echo of loneliness. Then came 1959, a year so packed with hits, barely left space to breathe. Ricky Nelson released 6 singles that year. Every single one entered the top 40. Believe What You Say peaked at number 4. Never Be Anyone Else But You reached number 6. It's Late hit number 9. Altogether, His music stayed on the charts for 55 weeks that year. Elvis was away in the Army. Ricky took the spotlight. Concerts earned him $5,000 per night. His label didn't want the fire to cool. Producers rushed out new records almost monthly. Fan clubs exploded. Over 9,000 official chapters formed worldwide, all for a boy not yet 20. His sound bounced between up-tempo rock and soft ballads. It wasn't just kids buying. Parents bought too. He was clean-cut. He was safe. He was everywhere. Then something wild happened. In June 1959, Nelson played a concert in New York. Over 10,000 girls showed up. Some had waited for hours. When he ended his set, the crowd surged forward, screaming, pushing, running. Police rushed in. They had to physically pull him from the stage and into a car. Girls banged on the windows, climbed the sides, chased it down the street. Newspapers the next day called it a riot. Other cities started to worry. Rock shows began hiring extra security. Nelson's label quietly reduced his public appearances. For the first time, teen hysteria became a real public threat. It wouldn't be the last time pop music would cause mayhem. That same year, his album Ricky Sings Again reached number 6. It sold over 1 million copies before the year ended. The song Sweeter Than You hit number 9. What set the album apart was the image that came with it. Ricky never shouted. He didn't smash guitars. He wore pressed shirts, smiled politely, performed on national TV in front of his parents. That clean image worked. Parents trusted him. Girls adored him. Record labels started copying it. They tried to build the next safe teen idol, but none had that same quiet confidence Ricky carried like it was part of his skin. By 1961, he released Travelin' Man, a song that became something else entirely. It hit number 1 on May 29 and stayed there for 5 straight weeks. Over 6 million copies sold almost instantly. The song had started as a demo pulled from the trash. Its B-side, Hello Mary Lou, hit number 9 in the US and climbed to number 2 in the UK. The album it came from, Rick Is 21, went gold. The public couldn't get enough. Sports teams even played Travelin' Man at games. It wasn't just a hit, it was a wave, a global one. Both sides of the record charted at the same time in multiple countries. It was the kind of double feat few artists ever achieved. The year before, he had toured Europe, 20 cities, 50 shows, 100,000 fans. They packed venues across Germany, the UK, France. Some nights, he performed twice. Fans pushed past security. Nelson, still a teenager, began to wear out. He looked pale, tired. The pace was brutal. His father, Ozzy, booked the tour to keep momentum going. The goal was clear: milk the fame before it faded. But the price was already showing on Ricky's face. In 1962, it got worse. He released 10 singles in a single year. That number is staggering, even for modern stars with digital studios. He collapsed during a promotional tour in Hawaii, on stage, in front of fans. Doctors warned him to slow down, but the shows kept coming. Ozzy refused to cancel. Fans started to notice. He seemed distant. His voice wasn't the same. The energy dipped. Something had shifted. And though the spotlight still followed him, the glow began to dim. In 1963, Decca Records signed Ricky to a massive 20-year contract, worth $1 million. Everyone thought it was a brilliant move. But then the Beatles arrived. The sound changed, the style changed, the audience changed. Suddenly, Ricky Nelson's polished image felt old. His single, For You, still reached number 6 in 1964. But the magic didn't stick. Decca tried to steer him into folk rock, then country rock. Nothing recaptured the fire. The contract that once looked like gold started to feel like chains. Nelson wanted to grow, but the world had moved on. He didn't stop. In 1961, String Along reached number 23. In 1964, his Rick Nelson in Concert Live album showed off a new sound. His band evolved. He brought in serious musicians. One of them, James Burton, became a legend. The band leaned into harmonies, country rock textures. It wasn't teen pop anymore. It was something else. That something shaped the future. Randy Meisner, who later helped form the Eagles, played in Ricky's Stone Canyon Band in the early 1970s. Jackson Browne and Linda Ronstadt drew influence from the same sonic roots. It was called the California Sound, and Ricky helped build it. At just 12 years old, Ricky Nelson stepped into the world of film with Here Come the Nelsons in 1952. It wasn't just a movie, it was a family affair. Shot at General Service Studios, the film was a natural extension of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and it gave America a charming glimpse into the real-life Nelson household. With a modest budget and a simple plot about suburban life, the film tapped into post-war American values and quickly became a hit with families. Ricky didn't need a dramatic role to win hearts. Just being himself, the youngest Nelson, was enough to make him a name everyone remembered. By 1958, he took a sharp turn. On General Electric Theater, Ricky played a troubled teen in an episode called The Wish Book. The show was known for its serious tone, and Ricky showed a new side of himself, raw, emotional. Not just the kid with a guitar, but the real breakthrough came a year later. In 1959, at only 18, he landed the role of Colorado Ryan in Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo, standing alongside giants like John Wayne and Dean Martin. Everyone had doubts. Could a teen idol actually act in a serious Western? Hawks thought so, and he was right. Ricky's vulnerable, sincere performance turned heads. The film earned $4.5 million, and critics took him seriously for the first time. His Golden Globe nomination in 1960 for Most Promising Male Newcomer made it official. Ricky Nelson wasn't just a pop star, he was a rising actor. The next year, he co-starred with Jack Lemmon in The Wackiest Ship in the Army, playing Ensign Tommy Reed. It was a quirky World War II comedy based on the real USS Echo. Shot in Hawaii and released in December 1960, the film made over $3 million and gave Ricky another boost. His charm worked on screen, even if some critics said he was still green compared to his music career. He didn't mind. For younger audiences, he was the draw. He followed that with Love and Kisses in 1965, a project directed by his father, Ozzie Nelson. Starring alongside his real-life wife, Chris, the film tried to mix music and acting. Ricky even promoted it on Shindig by singing new songs. But the film didn't go far. It was sweet, but didn't make a dent. Still, Hollywood had already made up its mind. Ricky was too wholesome for darker roles. The studios liked him clean-cut, innocent, safe. He only got 5 film roles outside of music, and every attempt to break into edgier characters was met with rejection. He wasn't gritty enough, wasn't dangerous enough, and no matter how sincere his performances were, the industry had typecast him as a teen idol and couldn't see beyond it. As the 1960s pushed forward with anti-heroes and raw storytelling, Ricky stayed on the margins. He never got the dramatic chance he deserved. By the 1970s, the movie roles faded. He appeared in TV movies like 3 on a Date in 1978, playing a chaperone on a Hawaiian getaway. Then High School USA in 1983, where he played Principal Pete Kinney. The charm was still there, but the momentum was gone. These roles were more about keeping him in the public eye than making a comeback. His music had already begun shifting. In 1969, Ricky launched the Stone Canyon Band. It wasn't just another group, it was a revolution. Alongside Randy Meisner, Tom Brumley, Alan Kemp, and Patrick Shanahan, he dove into country rock before it became mainstream. Their live album In Concert at the Troubadour 1969 captured lightning in a bottle. Their cover of Bob Dylan's She Belongs to Me hit number 33 on the charts, Ricky's biggest in years. This wasn't nostalgia, it was reinvention. He wasn't leaning on old fame. He was carving a new path, one that helped pave the way for bands like the Eagles and Poco. He was ahead of his time, but fame is a fickle thing. On October 15, 1971, at Madison Square Garden's Rock and Roll Spectacular 7, Ricky took the stage wearing bell-bottoms and a purple velvet shirt. His hair was long, his sound was new. He opened with Country Honk, a country twist on the Rolling Stones' Honky Tonk Women. The crowd booed loudly. They wanted Poor Little Fool. They wanted 1950s Ricky. He was stunned, finished one more song, then left the stage. The backlash haunted him, but from that bruising moment came Garden Party. The 1972 single reached number 6 and carried a message he'd never forget. You can't please everyone, so you got to please yourself. Despite the moment's success, the industry had moved on. His 1970 album, Rick Sings Nelson, vanished after Decca folded. In 1981, Playing to Win came out under Capitol. But disco ruled the airwaves, and his forward-thinking sound was ignored. 2 albums, both sunk by label instability and poor timing. Ricky was trying to stay ahead, but the world wasn't listening. Television became a fallback. He appeared in McLeod in 1972 and sang Garden Party, then in The Love Boat in 1978. These small appearances gave him visibility, but the music industry had already closed the door. After 1972, none of his singles hit the top 40. His career drifted into nostalgia, his name kept alive by reruns and memories. Offstage, things were just as turbulent. He married Kristen Harmon on April 20th, 1963, after she became pregnant. They had 4 children, Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam, but the marriage was fraught. By 1975, the weight of constant touring and Kristen's spending spiraled into chaos. They accused each other of addiction, dragged their battles through court, and after nearly 2 decades, the divorce was finalized in 1982. Ricky lost custody, paid over $1 million in legal fees, and was stuck with $4,000 monthly support. His family, once seen as the American ideal, lay shattered. And then came another blow. In February 1981, a woman named Georgian Crew gave birth to Eric Jude Crew, claiming Ricky was the father. They'd met at a Playboy resort. A blood test confirmed paternity, but Ricky denied any involvement beyond $400 in monthly support. After his death, Georgian fought for Eric to be included in the estate, but Ricky had left everything to his 4 children with Kristen. Eric was left out. The courts backed the will. Scientifically, he was Ricky's son, but in legacy, he was erased. In his final years, Ricky found comfort in Helen Blair. They met in 1980. She was a model and exotic animal trainer who quickly became his partner on the road and in life. She brought order to the chaos. They weren't married, but they were inseparable. Still, Ricky's family disapproved. He considered marriage, but never followed through. On December 31st, 1985, Ricky and Helen boarded a plane in Texas. The heater had already shown signs of malfunction, but no one grounded the flight. The fire spread mid-air. Ricky, Helen, and 5 others died in the crash. The pilots escaped. The world lost Ricky Nelson at just 45. What followed was even more painful. Ricky's mother, Harriet, refused to let Helen be buried next to him. She wasn't even mentioned at the funeral. Helen's family sued for $2 million in wrongful death, but the case was dismissed after a small settlement. Then came the estate drama. From 2011 to 2020, lawsuits uncovered $12.7 million in hidden royalties buried in old Capitol and Sony contracts. The discovery stunned even those closest to him. While Ricky had struggled financially and legally for years, money had been sitting unseen.